Today, we're looking into the life of Sri Ramakrishna. We've got excerpts from a complete biography, and we're zooming in on a really specific, quite poignant time. His very last visit to Kamarpukur, his home village.
It's a fascinating period.
We really want to unpack what happened then, look for those moments that, give you that feeling about who he was and his unique spiritual state.
And this visit, it came right after a really powerful spiritual vision he had involving Sri Chaitanya, another major figure.
Okay.
So seeing this period helps us understand his connection to the divine, his interactions. We're aiming to explore the key events and sort of dig into their deeper meaning.
Right. Let's start there then. That vision you mentioned. The source describes it as, pretty intense. Sri Ramakrishna seeing Sri Chaitanya and his followers in this ecstatic Sankirtan. That's the devotional singing and dancing, right?
Exactly. A huge spiritually charged procession.
So what's the key thing for us to grasp about that vision?
Well, it's the premonition, I think, and the connection. It wasn't just like watching history. He actually recognized people in that crowd.
Recognize them. As who?
As individuals who would later become his own disciples.
Wow. Okay. So it implies this almost predetermined path for his mission and the people who join him.
Precisely. It suggests a really deep, maybe fated connection.
And that vision seems to have, really lit a fire under him, didn't it?
It absolutely did.
Because the biography says it directly fueled his desire to get involved in Sankirtan himself during that last visit to Kamarpukur and the nearby villages.
Yes, he wanted to experience that same Vaishnava devotional intensity.
And the accounts emphasize this overwhelming ecstasy he felt during the chanting. What was going on there? What made it so powerful?
He was entering samadhi. That's the term used. It's this state of profound spiritual absorption, like a complete oneness with the divine. Very deep.
Not just a quiet internal thing, though.
Oh, definitely not. The sheer intensity of his state, it radiated outwards. It deeply affected everyone around him. Word spread like wildfire,
So people started showing up.
More and more Sankirtan groups came. Huge crowds gathered. Everyone wanted to witness these ecstatic trances.
He actually described it himself, didn't he? The biography includes his account. So it's pretty wild.
It does. He talks about a continuous Sankirtan, 7 days and nights straight, at Nadabar Goswami's place, then a weaver's home.
7 days.
Wow.
Non-stop.
Apparently so. And the detail about people climbing walls, scrambling up trees just to get a look.
Incredible. What does that tell you about the atmosphere?
Just sheer intensity, the constant music, the dancing, the energy of the crowd. It speaks to his incredible spiritual magnetism. He called it a divine attraction.
Right, driven by Yogamaya was the term.
Yes, Yogamaya. That kind of inscrutable divine power that both veils reality and draws devotees in. It just, captivated everyone.
But it sounds like it got a bit chaotic. There's that weird rumor mentioned.
Yes.
That he was dying and coming back to life several times a day. What's that about?
Well, it just highlights how extreme these ecstatic states were. For someone who'd never seen samadhi, maybe it did look like death, a complete withdrawal from the physical.
Makes sense.
And you have poor Frede, his nephew, frantically trying to manage everything that crowds Sri Ramakrishna's physical body, even dragging him out to open fields sometimes.
Why? What was he afraid of?
He apparently thought the intense emotion might cause a stroke or something. It just shows how overwhelming these experiences were, not just for Sri Ramakrishna, but for everyone witnessing them.
Okay, so this intense spiritual expression, it wasn't welcomed by absolutely everyone, was it? The book mentions some friction with the local Vaishnava leaders, the Goswamis.
That's right. There was some initial skepticism, even concern.
What was their main worry? Was it theological differences?
It seems it was actually more practical, maybe even a bit worldly. They were worried he and his followers might start claiming a share of the offerings, the dues that traditionally went to them. Ah, okay. So a potential threat to their established position.
Exactly. It shows that potential tension, doesn't it, between established religious structures and these newer, less conventional spiritual outpourings.
So how did they handle it? They decided to sort of test him.
They challenged him.
Focusing on the fact he wasn't wearing the usual Vaishnava symbols, the rosary beads, the mark on the forehead. Why was that the focus?
Because for them, those external signs were essential markers of faith. If you were truly devout, in their view, you'd display them. It was standard practice.
But the response he got was quite unexpected, wasn't it? It came from one of them, actually.
Yes, it's a fantastic line.
Yeah.
One of the Goswamis just said, they have automatically dropped off like the dry branches of a coconut palm.
That's such a vivid image.
Oh,
What's the deeper meaning there?
It's a beautiful illustration of, well, spontaneous renunciation, you could call it.
Yeah. Like just as old, dry branches naturally fall off a tree when they're no longer needed, these external religious practices or symbols can just fall away when true inner realization dawns.
So the real deal isn't the outward show, it's the inner change.
Exactly. It's about the inner transformation. And Sri Ramakrishna himself apparently loved that analogy. He used it later too, acknowledging where he heard it. It emphasizes that the superficial stuff just melts away when genuine understanding arrives.
So, moving away from the public Sankirtans and the debates with leaders, the biography gives us some really personal, almost strange glimpses into his state of mind during this period.
Some very unusual anecdotes.
That incident with the indigestion, and then waking up demanding food in the middle of the night, that's quite odd.
It really is peculiar. He'd had a light meal because he wasn't feeling well, then wakes up saying he's just popped back from Dakshine's war where he often stayed and he's hungry.
The women must have completely baffled.
Understandably. It strongly suggests his consciousness was, operating on a totally different frequency, almost like his physical body and his spiritual awareness weren't quite synced up, experiencing different things at the same time.
And then he eats this huge amount of sweets and parched rice they eventually give him, and feels better, despite the indigestion.
Right. It just flies in the face of our normal understanding of digestion and illness.
It really does. It hints that his spiritual state could somehow override physical limits.
That's what it suggests, yes. As if the normal rules of the physical world just didn't quite apply to him in the same way because his being was so anchored in another reality.
And there's that other story, similar in a way, from Jairabadi, his father-in-law's place, involving an enormous quantity of soaked rice.
Ah, yes, another instance of extraordinary appetite. After a big feast, almost everything was gone. But later that night, he felt incredibly hungry.
And all they had left was
a huge pot of soaked rice, apparently enough for several grown men, and he ate the lot.
the whole lot, with no ill effects.
None reported. Again, it just underlines this idea that his mind, his spiritual state, profoundly influenced his body's needs and abilities. The biography even explicitly says he showed how the human mind regulates the functions of the body to meet the demands of the situation.
Mind over matter, quite literally.
You could say that, yes.
Then there's that other anecdote about his aversion to being, well, admired physically.
Ah, the scarlet silk incident.
Right. Dressed up in this bright silk outfit, wearing a gold amulet, ready to travel somewhere. And he looked quite striking, apparently.
So much so that a large crowd gathered just to see him, drawn by his appearance.
But his reaction wasn't pleasure, was it?
Far from it. He was shocked, even disgusted, the biography says, by the idea that people were attracted to his physical beauty, his clothes.
What does that tell us about him?
Just profound detachment, utter indifference to material things, including vanity, how he looked, what people thought of his appearance. The fact that he just refused to go out like that, took off the fancy clothes immediately, it screams detachment.
His focus was just elsewhere entirely.
Completely. On the spiritual, rejecting anything that felt like a distraction.
And that detachment wasn't just about clothes, it extended to money. Possessions too, right? There's that story about Lakshmi Narayan, the wealthy Marwadi gentleman.
Yes, a very significant incident. This gentleman offered to deposit a large sum of money, 10,000 rupees I think it was, for Sri Ramakrishna's future comfort. A very generous offer on the face of it.
But Sri Ramakrishna's reaction was extreme, anguished even. Why?
He saw it as a trap, a potential obstacle between him and the Divine Mother, his term for God. He actually cried out, saying it could estrange me from thee.
Even when the man tried to offer it in the name of the Holy Mother, Sarada Devi.
Still no. Sri Ramakrishna felt it would indirectly become his, create an attachment, a dependency. His cry, "O Mother, why dost thou bring such people here who want to estrange me from thee?" It's incredibly powerful. It shows just how absolute his renunciation was.
He just couldn't countenance any form of material security tying him down.
Not at all. It felt like a fundamental threat to his spiritual path.
And that ties into the other story, involving his nephew Friday again, and the calf.
It does. It illustrates the same point from a slightly different angle. Friday had this simple, practical plan for a calf they had, raise it, use it for plowing later. Seems harmless enough, right?
Pretty standard stuff for a village family, you'd think.
But Sri Ramakrishna's reaction was incredibly strong. He actually fell into a swoon, a kind of trance, just hearing about this plan.
Just from hearing about planning for the calf's future.
Yes. And when he came around, he strongly condemned it. He saw that kind of forward planning, that hoarding and thinking about future gain, as Maya, worldly illusion.
Maya again. The thing that binds you to the material.
Exactly. It distracts from reliance on God, here and now. The biography says he felt Friday's words like a physical blow. That's how deeply he recoiled from that mindset.
Wow. Okay, so amidst all this detachment and ecstasy, there's one more really crucial element from this period described in the biography, this intense longing he felt.
Yes, a very profound yearning.
For his future disciples, the ones he'd seen in the vision.
Precisely. He had seen these pure souls, as he called them, and he felt this urgent, almost desperate need to meet them.
Why? What was the urgency?
To share his realizations, to pass on the spiritual truths he had experienced firsthand. He felt he needed to prepare them, to carry his message out into the world.
And the description of his longing is incredibly moving. Crying out from the rooftop at night.
Yes, the biography paints a vivid picture, his anguish that they hadn't arrived yet. He compared his feeling to the deepest human longings, a mother for her child, a friend for a companion, a lover for their sweetheart, all rolled into one intense spiritual ache.
That's quite something. A powerful image of connection and purpose.
It truly is. And it's noted that, remarkably, soon after this period of intense expressed yearning, his devotees did actually start to arrive, the ones who would form the core of his followers.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into that last visit to Kamarpukur, what are the main takeaways? It feels like we've covered a lot.
We definitely have. I think the key things that stand out are the sheer power of his spiritual experiences, that overwhelming ecstasy during Sankirtan.
Right, and coupled with that, his incredible detachment from anything, material, money, praise, even planning for the future.
Absolutely. And those glimpses into his unique consciousness, the strange incidents with food and hunger, they really challenge our assumptions.
And finally, that deep, deep longing for the disciples who are yet to come.
That sense of mission.
So, the aha moments for you. Listening. What should you really hold on to?
Well, I think you see the sheer transformative force of spiritual ecstasy, how it can impact not just one person, but a whole community.
Yeah. And maybe a different way of thinking about renunciation, not just giving things up, but that state where external things just fall away naturally.
Exactly, that dry branches idea. And maybe also just contemplating that powerful, almost invisible bond that can exist between a spiritual guide and those who are meant to find them.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over. Think about these experiences of Sri Ramakrishna. How do they kind of highlight that constant push and pull we all feel between the material world, its attractions, its demands, and that deeper pull towards, well, spiritual truth, or maybe just meaning?
That's a great question. What could it mean in your own life, for instance, to cultivate that kind of intense longing for something more, something beyond the everyday grind?
While maybe also practicing some form of detachment from the purely material stuff, it's a balance, isn't it?
It is. So, what parts of Sri Ramakrishna's experiences during this really pivotal time resonate most with you? With your own ideas about purpose, about connection, about what really matters, something to think about.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.